Oh my God, we've got.
Ah,
Hey everybody, this is
hi
XR.
guys.
I'm trying to get more professional again. It's a pattern of I forget that this is supposed to be like a show and not just a happy hour hangout.
Hello and welcome.
Hello, welcome to.
XR Talk with Paul and Spencer.
Yeah, like and subscribe, all that stuff. So
So,
another
hi Paul.
week. Hey, man, crazy times. We got chat going on. Randall Hand is in. Hello, Randall.
Nice.
Let's see. Eric's here. We got the peanut gallery is spinning up. So we have a guest today, Spencer.
Yeah.
I'd like you to introduce the guest today.
Our guest today is Anastasia Devana. No, sorry.
Mm.
Okay. Anastasia. Anastasia is how you pronounce her
Yeah.
name. And there she is.
Yay! Yay!
Good job, Spencer. Proud of you.
I did debate. I could have been like, we actually have three guests today. It's Anastasia and
Mhm.
uh,
Anesthesia.
Anesthesia.
Anastasia. Anastasia. I like
Anastasia.
that actually.
Credit to
Yeah.
Brian Schwab for helping us all down the right path to correct pronunciation.
Yes.
So how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hello.
Oh man,
Wonderful.
yeah, we've.
Thank you for having me.
Oh no, of course we've been having a blast having former coworkers on. So, um, in case you didn't see us announce the guest this week, Anastasia's was that magically 5 years?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
So started. What year did you? I started in 20. Spencer and I both started early 2014.
Yeah, so it's 2015, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And yeah, you came in as a part of, if I remember correctly, um, one of the early. We had like George Sanger and was David Roach there before or after you?
He was there. Yeah.
And so we kind of had like, I think the early days we called it Sonic Arts. I don't know if that's stuck.
Yeah, I did.
It did. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah. The
if
whole time.
if that gives you any insight into magically, we had a department called the Sonic Arts, which was a legitimate official department name, and so yeah, like it'd be cool to hear.
Damn fine department.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
ask me.
a star-studded cast, in fact, and I mean, at the time, again, it'd be cool to hear after we left how things maybe evolved, but the company really put a priority around audio and you had to remember like we had multiple layers of focus. There was like content creation, so the act of producing audio for experiences and different things, but there was also like audio requirements for the hardware side of things, driving spatialized audio requirements. How do people compose this content and in this whole new crazy environment and ecosystem? So really the reason why it was called Sonic Arts was like it was really like you had multiple types of focus. So like is that kind of how it stayed? Were you always bouncing around those things or did it change over time?
Uh, so I mean, the structure did change over time. I can't remember how it was when you were there, but eventually the Sonic Arts team moved under the Magic Leap Studios, which is internal, first-party developer. So I was leading that, but we also worked still like really closely with other departments. So our primary goal was to deliver all the audio content for the first-party original stuff, right? So all the studio experiences, that was all us. That we also did the Magic Leap like platform sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So all the UI UX, the logo, kind of most of the branding. And then we work closely with our audio algorithms team or R&D team on providing like developer focused feedback. We also like worked on a lot of internal tools that we were trying to get out to people, which
I remember at one point on one of the wearable demos, there was kind of the very first inklings of how we were going to do our audio. And it was this little 3D printed red kind of Lego block thing. And it sat on the edge of the thing, and it projected the sound into your ears. And so, like,
Right,
with
the
you
speaker.
guys involved,
Yeah.
you guys were probably in a lot of meetings with that as well, right? Like with
Not-
the hardware development part, no?
Yeah, not as much on the hardware, to be honest. I mean, we provided some feedback, if something didn't sound right,
Right.
and that's like, it caused some very passionate discussions that
Yeah.
eventually led to improvement.
I remember some of those on the visual side.
But yeah, it was, we were definitely mostly like software content. And then in the last year that I was there, also kind of partnered with the product team to be almost like a acting kind of product owner for the audio platform, along with Michael Simon. So kind of like he's in product, I was, kind of audio subject matter expert. So we worked on like developing the audio roadmap of all the features, for the next kind of 2 iterations of the device, and then work with algorithms and all these other software teams to like get everybody on board, figure out all the, dependencies and all that kind of stuff. So that was pretty interesting.
And just
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
Well, I was just so people know, because I try to remember that, like, a lot of people in we obviously have a lot of people that were also coworkers, which is awesome to see, but we also have a lot of people that don't know some of the inside lingo. So, like, when you're talking about first party and Magic Leap Studios, I mean, what that means is like create and
create undersea pancake pals, and then last light, if hopefully
if that sees the light of day,
is the last light of day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so like all the, and then on top of that, like when you start up the device, when you navigate the menus, like the operating system,
Yep.
anything you
Yep.
hear, you had some sort of touch on
all
it.
the beep boops and blings and
Beep boops and
bucketing.
blings.
Yes. Ask,
Those-
ask
I
Fred
got-
Shipes in the comments, and he'll vocalize like everything for you.
I gotta say that and I've said this on one of our other casts. I didn't get a chance to actually put the ML1 on my head until just a couple months ago,
Because
Oh, wow.
and it was mine.
and it was in Paul's basement, and
Bad.
before we were afraid of each other's breath, and so we're hanging out, and I put that on my head, and the startup visuals were great because I have enough experience to be able to kind of judge, like, oh yeah, that works and this works and that, the UX looks work, but the audio just made the whole thing come together in this really wonderful kind of like soft, kind of tone-filled, boopy kind of environment.
It adds
And,
texture, right? It just adds a layer of
man.
detail.
And this is something that I don't think. I think that this is something that is unfortunately the bane of all interactive audio designers. Is that's the shit that goes in last. No one thinks about it.
Trust me, nobody thought about it ever.
Nothing's-
Not even the
Right?
It was,
You're right.
Right?
It was literally, Brett and myself, at least from within the company, we were kind of the two people just making it happen, because we were like running around the entire software team and trying to find people who would touch the code and hook stuff up. It was great, fun and interesting challenge.
It makes it so so much better.
It's that layer of shine, like it's that sheen, like it's what finishes everything off. It just gives it depth, like it to an experience. Did maybe you didn't see it? I tweeted this really funny tweet because it really hit home. But like, some person had drawn up like a flow chart of, if you want to become a game developer, here's like your decision tree of what discipline in game development you should focus on. And it was this whole like flow chart of, if you like this, or if this is, and it was basically boiled down to, you're either a programmer or an artist. And then
Right.
And then
there was no audio path
so
at all.
so someone
Right.
someone retweeted that and said, well, you know for sure that a game dev made this flowchart because they totally forgot about audio. Like in this.
Yeah.
And it's so true. So
Yeah.
true. There's never audio always even in like old school game dev, audio never had the budget. It never had the processing. It was always like audio was always last, and it always got the tightest squeeze on everything. And it's like the tortured life of an audio person. You know?
I don't know why I do this to myself. No, but so I have a theory about it. So Spencer, you're an artist, right? Tell me how often have people like come to you and like angrily get into your face and complain about like some placeholder asset that you put in and be like, why is the character in T-pose and not moving around? It makes me angry. Take it out. Has that ever happened?
Well,
Gonna go with a no.
I'm gonna say I know what you're looking for is a yes, but
no, I'm looking for a no because it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
No, you're looking for a no, but I have to say that as the frontline connection to all my clients, this is something I've been dealing with for 10 years at least, is that the way that we develop interactives and games and stuff is we start out with cubes. And then everything gets better and better and better. And so the first time the client sees it, they're like, "Why are these cubes?"
No, I'm not talking about the client. I'm talking about your coworkers, your teammates.
Well,
yeah,
not
so,
anymore because they don't work for me.
So my theory is that people like think about visuals like, you know, with their brain. They're like, okay, it's a cube. I get it. It's not a person. Like I understand it will become a person at some point. Like people have no capacity to like think like constructively or like critically about audio. They just feel emotions about it. So if you put a placeholder sound, like people will like send me angry emails and being like, can you turn this off? It's horrible.
Oh, I get it.
Like,
I get
okay,
it.
like
So
great cube, but horrible.
You don't get the luxury of like basically you're immediately, even if it's like I totally get it, right? Because like a very common thing on the graphics side is like, oh, we make it magenta, so we know we need to replace it someday.
Right.
But if
55 and it's this horrible, ugly color that you can look at, but it's like, you don't want to look at it. But
it doesn't give it this emotional like
if you put static in there
as some kind of horrible screeching sound, we obviously don't want that in there. So it's a placeholder,
So people can
be like, oh God.
That's interesting. So people our tolerance, our audio taps into a different thing. It actually
part of the cortex or something. That's actually like the first sensory input that your brain processes by far is sound.
Because it's faster.
So you like process it on some weird like primordial, Neanderthal brain level or something.
So this is actually a really good argument for getting sound right early and giving it budget and getting it into the game correctly, because it's a
but my point is, whenever I like give that example, it's like that also shows the power of sound. It's like it can make you feel so much stuff without you ever realizing it, right? We can create all these emotions that would be hard to create with like just the visuals, so visuals like awesome, beautiful, can get emotional, of course. Awesome sound can give you all this emotion, but then like when you combine the two together and it works perfectly, like that's the
when that kind of, so I wanted to bring up Estella's question because but obviously it's not reasonable.
My cat forgets to get in.
No,
I don't know if you hear like sorrowful
it's fine.
meows.
I just assumed it was Spencer's cats. But like the extreme of this would not be, we should do all the sound design first. Typically, the sound design, like just inherently, is tied to visuals in some way. So like I guess so. Estella's question is like, in your ideal world, like when do you start designing and integrating as a part of a product development the spatial audio? Do you need visuals to work with, or like what ideally?
Start right away, right? I mean, start at concept, because whatever like your first stage of, concept or R&D, whatever comes in the beginning, that's when you start. Like we've always had on all the projects that we've delivered at Magic Leap, we were fully integrated from the beginning into the team. And I think that's the only way we were able to, deliver the, the designs and the behaviors and the quality that we did, because sound can be part of the design, right? The actual design of experience.
Right.
And
so there's two things too. I mean, sound is such a complex piece of any interactive because there's not only the Foley sounds of the beeps and boops in your menus or footfalls or things like that, but there's also the environmental ambient background and the music track and all of that stuff. So if you were going to kind of like do a 1, 2, 3 with environmental kind of like ambient placement sounds, boops and bleeps and UI stuff, and then Foley, what do you work on first? If you're like working from cubes with me, you and I are working on something, and I've got a bunch of cubes out there, and they're doing things. Like, where do you start? Do you start with the ambient? Do you start with the Foley? Like, or you just do everything at the same time?
I mean, well, if you step back a little bit, right? First, you kind of do concept. Yes. Yeah, please stay right there. Yeah, so, I mean, first, ideally, you do quote-unquote like concept. When your artists start working on visual concept, you can start kind of choosing the sonic palette, your music direction. You come up with like a bunch of like playlists. So like, hey, we like this style. This is an instrumentation we're gonna go with. You can start creating some themes. Like it, of course, depends on the project. If it's a story-based project and you have strong characters, you can already start composing, themes for them. You can start coming up with some kind of like sonic palette for your ambience and your UI and all the stuff like that. You can also start working on kind of the design document in a way for audio behaviors, because your designers will already start designing the GDD, and they're saying like, okay, we're going to have this type of interaction, or we're going to have this scene. So there's a lot you can do before you even see the first, visual, is you can start saying, especially in this medium, right, with spatial audio, especially if you're doing storytelling, you can say like, okay, we're going to have sounds, coming from the back and moving this way, or, position in this different, areas. Like we did a lot of interesting stuff like that on the last slide. Hopefully it comes out. I will keep plugging it.
We'll get it out.
I love that term, the sonic palette, because we use a color palette, and in order to design a scene, and we want to make it all kind of match together. And so your sonic palette is.
It's kind of like it's. Do you think about it in terms of mood or like pace, like, or is it all those things?
It's all of the above. It's mood, pace. It's sometimes it's like, you use other references for, hey, if you're making a kind of retro looking game, you might want to go use some retro sounding games as a reference. It's like, okay, we're going to go kind of with more synthesized sort of, 8-bit type sounds and soundtrack. So you might look at different references.
FM synthesis.
Yeah,
right.
And be like, oh, we can combine this with that. Or maybe like UI, we can say like, okay, it's going to be totally synth-based, or it's going to be based on like natural, actual sounds. Like, you're doing a game about a forest, and we're actually going to go break some branches and then process them and turn them into like button sounds. So that way you're embedding a little bit of that, design and the theme of the game, even into the kind of functional interactions. And then to answer your question, Spencer, like on a more practical side, like when you start delivering final sounds, of course, ideally, like you have, especially for like Foley, ideally you have like locked animation when you start doing Foley, because anytime that changes, we have to just redo it.
Oh yeah, I'm realizing that right now. The project that I'm working on, we have hand holds on a tree, and then hand releases. And those are like down to the frame. They have to be exactly right.
Yep.
And so we're, and trying to get my audio guy and my animator together and with me and putting it all together. It's kind of fun. It's but it's definitely a last part of the piece, the folios. Yeah.
Yep. And then anything that's, interactive, especially if you're doing anything in like VR or, AR, whatever you want to call it, that has like natural interactions, that's going to take, 5 times the amount, because you really want to tune them, and the sound has to like correspond to the exact like motions that the user's doing.
Interesting. So like if you had, okay, let's say you have a game where you've got, like The Climb. Have you ever played The Climb? Where you're climbing up a cliff. It's kind of they have the sound when your hand hits the rock, and then they have a sound when your hand kind of slides, and they have a sound when you come off the rock. And those things are, I'm assuming, basically, there's some kind of physics collider there where it's like, okay, you've hit it and now you're sliding, and it can tell where you are in 3D space. So that kind of brings me to a question about like spatial audio. I've always, we've done a bunch of work in with 3D audio, which is, and I saw you joking with somebody on Twitter yesterday or the day before about like, oh, you just put the sound source over there, and then it gets further away, but that's the only experience I've had with spatialized audio. But what you guys are doing is something more.
That's not true.
More spatialized.
Yeah. Well, we've talked, just so everybody, just to level set a little bit. We talked about this on the show before, because some of my most interesting Magic Leap demos were my exposure to true spatialized audio. So like a lot of people think, just to kind of help explain it a little bit, there's the old school 3D audio where it's just panning, and essentially what you get is a sound that feels like it's on a very fixed arc around your head, and there's no sense of distance or up or down. Like there's not 6 degrees of sense of where that audio is coming from. You can either tell if it's to the left side of your head, right side, front or back, basically.
It's just really left to right.
Yeah. And
panning is just left to right.
But if it's attached to an object and you can have a fall off on that sound.
Fall off,
right?
Yeah.
It'll get quieter.
It'll get quieter.
So when we talk about,
it doesn't go up or down.
When we talk about true spatialized audio, it's truly giving you a sense of not only left, right, but up, down, left, back, and distance. Like you just intuitively know. Yeah. So I just want to make sure everybody was on the same page. So like about like spatialized audio, and that's usually what we mean when you hear that term, is that it's a finer, not only control of how the audio is presented, but how we perceive it. It's our perception of audio, and it's the closest thing we have to the real world, right? Or do you have a different definition?
So here's a fun thing that I'm just tell me to shut up. And
no, this is what we're here for.
Talking too long.
No,
so,
yeah.
No, this is my favorite topic. So
we're gonna put the focus on you.
No. So when people like, oh my God, spatial audio, I can use this plugin, and I play this sound source, and I put the plugin on it, and holy deep crap. It sounds like it's behind me, and it's in front of me, and it's above me.
You could say shit.
Yeah, we're not safe for children.
And my whole life has changed, and that's what people say. And then I go like, that's just like the beginning of the story. You just welcome to first grade, kind of thing. Yeah, it's like,
awesome.
3D rendering, now we're done. Of course we're not done. Like if you're talking about graphics, right? It's like, we have invented the 3D renderer. We don't need to do anything ever again. Like that's not true, right? That's why we don't have any 3D artists or text, artists or anything like that.
At Magic Leap, it was maybe an oversimplification, but at Magic Leap we talked a lot about the light field and the fact that what makes a light field different than a fixed focus stereoscopic display is theoretically you're getting more information that cues you into a physical location of a photon, like for a really simple overgeneralized example. And so we did start talking about the sound field because we did talk about the fact that, it is a 6 DOF version of audio is probably another way to describe it. And so for anybody that didn't watch Brian Schwab's episode last week, the reason why Anastasia is on today is because we're like, holy crap, we do need to talk to her. It's been a while. And he really bragged on, and I saw our friend Jurg is in here, mention the legendary Lightsaber demo. And Brian talked about that and basically that Lucasfilm said this is the most accurate real-time simulation of a lightsaber sound we've heard. And so
and they've been working on it for like 10 years.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, so that's actually proves my point, because just even with light field, if I take my asset and I put it on this light field display, it doesn't make me a great designer or
right.
creator.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
there's so much more of the craft and the technique that you need to use or come up with to actually have, a good content at the end, right? So the lightsaber, if you were just spatial audio, we'll take the sound of a lightsaber, we'll put it on the lightsaber, we'll add the 3D audio plugin, and it's gonna be spatial, great, but it that wouldn't sound good. I mean, it would sound okay, I guess, but Brad Shipes over there in the comments who wants to tell. Yes, so Brad Shipes basically is just about single-handedly responsible for the legendary lightsaber, and the only thing I did was stand over his shoulder for 2 months and be like, oh, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. You can do better. Make the best damn lightsaber the world has ever heard or something. And then finally he did it. But
so I have a question about that, because there's actually 2 questions I have. One is, were there multiple sound sources down the lightsaber that could you travel a sound up and down the lightsaber?
There were, so yes. So what?
And then the second question, and I'll shut up, is, well, no, I won't really, but
no, you won't.
Is that did you take into account the environmental geometry for bounce and for room tone and stuff like that?
Sure, I can answer those. So I think maybe Brett can post in the comments how many sources there were, but there were what our goals were for the lightsaber. The first goal was we want to be able to hear the entire thing. We don't want to just hold the lightsaber and see it in front of us, but then just hear the sound come from one point, just from a handle or just from the tip or just from the middle. Because you can, with a device, you can get it
hold it up to your ear,
move it around, right? So we didn't want the sound to come from just one spot. We wanted it to come from everywhere. And that, technology doesn't allow for that, because technology of 15 plus, Brett says, over 15 sound sources.
Wow.
Technology only allows us to make point source sounds, meaning the sound will come from one single point. So yeah, Brett did place multiple sound sources all along the blade. And the cool part of it, if anybody's a musician and knows anything about string vibration, is that a string vibrates and it has I think they're called antinodes, kind of that's how you can produce harmonics on the guitar. If you kind of hold the string at this point, it will half the frequency or do 1/3 of a frequency or something like that. So we basically, when we heard the sound of the lightsaber and analyzed it, it actually has this harmonics, this natural harmonic progression. So the inspired thing that Brett did was actually surgically remove the individual harmonic tones.
Wow.
And put it
and
on
then
the
make a sound
specific
source for each one of those
antinode.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the bass
Right.
harmonic, and that's the first harmonic and the second harmonic. And of course it was all these other additional processing based on like movement velocity and angular velocity and proximity to your ear and all kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, there was
Okay,
about
so then you basically kind of ray traced a lightsaber.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's like
but-
GI for audio, or like ray tracing for audio.
However, now that sounds processor intensive. So what was your method like, or was there a method to kind of reduce the polygon count?
I don't think it was that intensive, to be honest, because it was actually a lot of it was resynthesized and fairly like cheap synthesis. The more expensive part was, I think, particles, because like we were triggering particles based on basically triggering the sounds of the particles based on each individual particle, which got like really expensive really fast. So
Wow.
I think we took off the spatializer from
Wait,
the particle.
hold on. You had a particle system running off of the lightsaber, and each particle had its own sound source?
Yeah, so whenever you crack, the iconic
I
crash of the two lightsabers, like, and they would see the sparks.
Brett is trying to explain and defend to his possible best in the chat. They never said it was efficient.
Great. It sounded great. That was the point. That was the goal.
I mean, mission accomplished. But
yeah, no shit, mission accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, like the
Apollo 13.
So I would imagine like the visceral feedback too is like obviously it feeling accurate to the velocity at which you're swinging it around, and like the naive version of that is, we'll detect how fast you're swinging it around and we'll pitch shift or we'll play a different. So like,
it almost was that, to be honest. Like
Okay.
At first, I think we tried to do like gesture detection, and that was just too janky. Like it was either like false positives or like not sensitive enough. So we were trying to like play pre-recorded zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom
Yeah.
sound.
We'll play the high zoom or the low zoom.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Right.
it was like there were too many like false triggers or under triggers or whatever. So eventually, it just went actually with just velocity, but it was driving a number of different parameters like distortion
fact
and
that you
fade
guys
this
were
sound
able
and
to-
fade that sound.
Right. That you took the velocity and then modify each one of those little sound sources along there.
Yeah.
That's really where the magic was.
Yeah.
Is that you were able to, because if I rotate something like this, then like this, then this thing in the middle is not moving very far. This one is moving fast, and this one's moving fast.
Right.
So this one would have a different tune, and this one would. Yeah, that's really freaking cool.
So we had a little chat with Brian last week about. I loved pointing out the example of when we were doing fingertip tracking and we put a little red dot on the fingertip of a video feed, and how accurately you can attach a red dot to the finger when it's on a video feed. But the minute it's running through an optical view through and you're looking at your real world finger, it's a much different latency problem to try to superimpose digital content on your finger while you're looking at your finger versus a video. So Jonathan in the chat, I think was kind of getting at the same point, which is like, let's stay on the lightsaber example where somebody is wildly swinging around something that they see in real time. Like, what is that lag or latency? It's easy for people to understand, or it's not, none of it's easy, but I think it's easier for people to understand visually mapping a digital piece of content on a video frame versus my real world view of, my view of the real world. Like, I never really honestly thought about there's that same concern for audio. Yeah. Audio lag. And then I got to thinking about what you were saying when we first started, like audio actually goes through a different mental processing path, which sounds faster than our visual system. So like, is that a challenge? Is that something you had to deal with?
No, honestly, that was never a problem. And Jonathan, I'm not sure if you're asking about like kind of like the ITD or ILD, like inter whatever something time difference, like specifically for spatialization, because that if that's what you're asking, that's already taken care of by the spatial audio algorithm, and we don't have to even worry about it. But if it's more towards like, oh, what was like the latency versus like your actual movements, I don't think that was ever a problem, to be honest. And the interesting thing about that demo, the Lightsaber, is that I don't know what the field of view was on that prototype that we're using, if you guys remember the WD3. But it wasn't huge, right? And if you have a lightsaber in your hand in front of you, like you don't actually see the whole thing. You see like the little strip of light.
Unless you're like this.
It was probably 30-ish, I think. WD3.
But it didn't matter because like I could like close my eyes, I could like put it behind my head and like move it around, and I knew exactly where it was. It was just like was really one of the best examples.
Which then allows you to kind of suspend disbelief and be able to feel like you have that thing, even though you can't see it.
Exactly,
you're still hearing it where it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so interesting. So just again to catch people up on some of the inside baseball, like WD3 was a big part of the Magic Leap story from, I would say, late 2014 through most of 2015, if not all of 2015, and it was our primary hardware we worked with. It's WD3 was for wearable.
Up into 2017.
Yeah. It was Wearable Demo 3 was the abbreviation, and we give a lot of demos. I mean, when I talk about I gave demos, a lot of it was on WD hardware. In WD3, we actually gave a lot of audio only demos. There was a few because we were doing the near ear. I forget the cool speakers. Audio term for it besides speakers.
Always available audio.
Yeah. And so we would do those. So like again, some credit to Magic Leap for recognizing how important audio was to this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to point out, because we've talked about a lot of Brett's work, and I think we should give him some more airtime, but
thanks, Brett.
He was making a point about the particle system, but like what you see is what you hear. So maybe even if there is latency in the audio system compared to the real world, as long as it matches up with what you're seeing, it's kind of okay, right? Visual is our first check, right? It's like it can what do we know what our tolerance is?
Yeah, there are some studies actually, like our hearing and localization is not as precise, obviously, as our visual system in terms of precision. And if you get in mixed signals between the two, the visual will win for the most part. Especially if they're kind of close enough. Like, oh, I see a light blink on the left, but the sound kind of came from the middle. You still kind of like think that the sound came from the left.
Right.
So the exact spatial precision is not as important. So when you're trying to match the two, like the visual will win. But having said that, when the two are like totally in sync, like that is really magical, right? Mm-hmm. Because your brain doesn't need to do the extra legwork. It's like, holy shit,
it just checks out.
This
so
is
I have a simple 2D audio question because this has come up a couple times recently.
Consulting?
I know.
Is this turning into Spencer's? We work for free for Spencer's consulting projects.
So.
Pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, I'll change the title.
No, when I'm cutting audio and I have a flash and there's a clap at that flash, do I tune the audio in front of that visual flash?
That's a good question.
One
actually.
frame behind it, right? Because there's
or does it matter?
There's kind of, and actually no, it does matter, and I used to know it and I've forgotten it. But when you're tuning audio, there is there's kind of a maxim that you basically go one frame in front or one frame behind, and I forget which one it is. Do you know?
Never heard that. About? No, like I talk about like a two-pop kind of. Like
when you're doing when you're comping video to audio, because generally you start with an audio track and then you comp your video into the audio track. There's this. I think that it's audio first, and then this goes to Paul's mention of seeing and hearing something in the same spot in 3D. but like seeing and hearing something like this also goes back to the lag thing. Like, do you want your audio to actually be a little faster or a little slower?
So, I mean, I might be totally full of shit, but like every time I've done this, they're as in sync as you can make it. Like, so you don't really try to go before or after. You just like do it like.
Well,
right
okay, all right, fancy lady, you're working at 90 frames.
Well, but
a
you know,
second.
you know what
You're not
though,
talking about
like
30 frames a
there
second
there is
here,
a
you know?
there is a interesting question kind of buried in here, which is there is a disconnect between what is physically realistic and what is actually entertaining. So like
and what people are used to.
yeah,
right?
so
Because,
like if I in a real world, if I see an explosion a kilometer away,
exactly.
it's weird for me to hear the thunderclap later. I want to hear it as
Yep.
soon as I see it.
Yep.
And when we're synthetically composing these experiences, we can do that. And so in some ways, it's almost a bad experience to be physically accurate in that example.
Very true. Yeah, very true.
Which
Yeah,
I've
and
never
there's
thought
also,
about.
like exactly what you said. There's like, you know, kind of there's also expectations that you built up of what sounds right, and they're not always correct. You know, like a very like typical example is the sound of a gunshot. You know, everybody thinks they know what it sounds like, but that's not what a gun sounds like. So that's the same thing with like this time delay for a distant explosion. Even in the movies, they don't do that.
Right.
Usually, you know, they'd like put the sound right on it because that's what people are now trained to expect.
I mean, we talk about that on the visual side. I mean, that was one of my biggest kind of revelations in the world of Magic Leap is how much our brains fill in detail. And as long as you hit the right checkpoints, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to like, as long as you pass the expectations, it's great. And
Yeah.
in fact, if you over index on trying to be physically accurate, you'll get bad results sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of times actually.
Yep.
I didn't want to, we had a lot of great practical questions. And so we do have a lot of people in the audience that are novices and they're learning. And I think in particular about, again, it's just for whatever reason, the tortured soul of the audio person, that audio is thought of last. And I think the cool part is we've inspired some people that are new to creating experiences in general to actually think about their audio for a minute. And so we had a couple questions. One was from Eric. I don't know if I can scroll back far enough, but he had questions about, I'm starting to build an experience and I'm working in Unity. Like when or how should I get started putting audio into that? He's working on something as his personal project, and we did talk a little bit about how you were like as soon as possible, but so then the other question of that was like, where do you go to source audio? Like, what would you recommend to someone who they don't have the capability or the talent to produce their own audio? And, there's sound effects, music, like all ambient, so what's your kind of beginner, like cheat sheet to how somebody could really amp up their experience with audio when they're new to the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean it's a tough question, to be honest, because it's like, how do you teach somebody to like do 3D art, in 5 minutes? Because you really can't, right? So if you're doing literally everything yourself, including art, and you're getting assets from the App Store, like you can probably do the same with audio. Like I know there are, assets, and there are like free, sound design like websites online and stuff like that. No, but if you're like getting somebody to do your art, like get somebody to do your sound.
Yeah.
And they're, hate to be advocating, free work, but if you're being realistic, there are like so many people who want to get in, to this. Like interactive audio is like super competitive. So for somebody who is like just a student or just like is out of school and they're passionate about it, maybe like they'll work with you, and that way you get in somebody who is, kind of knows a little bit what they're doing, and they get to learn. You get to learn from them. Maybe it's like a good collaboration going forward. That when you have a paid project or a real project, like you can then hire them or something like that.
Yeah,
that's my advice.
It's a pretty open-ended question, and but I think relative to the other one I wanted to get to was Patrick McCrory was asking, like, if you're tasked with, hey, we want to have a rock, hitting sound, what is your approach? Is it really super literal and practical, like you go out and find some rocks and bang them together, or like how do you go about sourcing the content when you have when you know what you're trying to produce?
Yeah, it depends, honestly, on the style and this sonic palette that you're going for.
Mm-hmm.
You might, instead of like hitting a rock, you might find that, if I, hit this, I don't know, I'm trying to come up with a random object, this book, and actually it sounds perfect, for what I need. There are also, sound libraries that a lot of professionals, use, professional sound designers that like buy a bunch of sound libraries. And also depends like on the work style of a sound designer. Some prefer, and like and enjoy to do a lot of recording. And they'll go and find rocks and try to record them different ways and hit them with different objects to get the right sound. And, that's something that some people like really enjoy doing. And then they'll combine it with like 3 other rocks to make the most satisfying hitting rock sound possible. So there's definitely like a lot of art to this. I wouldn't say there's like hard and fast rule. If you go back to Lightsaber, and how that sound was created, I believe Ben Bird created the sound from 2 separate things. One was like some broken old TV and like this weird like lamp inside the TV, and the other sound, like the hum, he would actually like play some sound from like a microphone, and then he would like swing that microphone in front of the speaker.
I would have assumed Skywalker Sound gave you some stuff to work with.
Oh no, I'm talking. They did. I'm talking about the original actual lightsaber sound. Because there was no other lightsaber. So.
Oh right. Oh sorry. Yeah, I was thinking about the project that you worked on. I didn't catch the names. So the other piece of it too that I would say is just audio assets in my mind are very similar to like fonts in that if you're just
clip art,
like if you're making something as a side project or a hobby project or it's just a personal project, you can kind of do whatever you want. But if you're working on something that's going to be distributed, you need to be real careful around licensing and rights and royalties and things like that.
No, that's true. So there are like sites out there. I don't know. I think it's like freesound.org.
Yeah, is Pond 5 still a thing? Pond 5 was the.
I believe so. Yeah, but some of them you can search by like license type. You can get like Creative Commons, which can be used anywhere. So definitely read the fine print on anything that you use.
So we had another question. I'm glad to see David in here. I follow him on Twitter. He's always got some cool stuff to say. He has a spicy question, which is, he's curious to know how people that advocate for time and resources for thinking about audio sooner in the process than later, how have you?
I think we just told them.
Yeah, but
just like
how
we're doing this.
Is that you're just like it's got to happen? Like, yeah, I mean, I think the question is also like, how do you fight to get like a seat at the table sooner than later? And like, is that through demonstrating? Like, is it the best thing to do is show like how much better audio is with these things, or are you?
Yeah, to be honest. Yeah, no, to be honest.
I'm just going to real quick just say, I think it's conversations like this that then radiate out through people like David. And then as we go forward, people like you are able to come to the table with a little bit more oomph. Because it is insane how little we spend on audio in game development in general, and in audio and in AR. So anyway, I think that talking about it now is going to help everyone in audio later.
Well, I think
Yeah.
it's just awareness, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's hard. Like I won't lie. Um, I think in a way, maybe we got a little lucky because we weren't part of a traditional established studio with its own like rules that are like, oh, audio only gets 5%. You know, it was just like because nobody knew what they were doing essentially. Like for our first project, I spent like months trying to get like, okay, do we have a budget? Do we have like a CPU budget? Do we have memory budget? And like, I don't think anybody even knew what
A budget.
what our device
Budget? What? We have $1 billion.
A budget implies you have a plan.
But like I was asking our game, our app, for Create. I was like, okay, do we have like a thing for audio? Like, do we have to stay within X number of CPU or whatever? And like, we didn't even know how much CPU we're gonna get on Magic Leap 1.
Well, that's because we didn't know
they were just like, do whatever
we had
you
no
want,
idea.
and we'll see.
We had no idea how many cycles we had for anything.
Right.
For a long time, and that's actually in that is an R&D thing, right? Like no one knows exactly how much you're going to be able to squeeze out of the hardware until the very end. So like part of that is just the realism. Like we didn't know, and no one knew until the very end.
Yeah, I think.
And I think like once we kicked it out of the park, like on Create with audio side, that was just kind of a norm. It's like, okay, audio people are part of a team and they start from the beginning and they get whatever they want. And
I really think about it like hopefully this conversation like teaches people to be like woke about audio. Like, because really it's not that hard to explain. Like try watching. Well, I'll bring a very real world topical example. Like a lot of these live TV shows, like John Oliver, they've been filming from their home, and they don't have the live audience, and you don't have it shows you how like much layer and texture. You never see the audience hardly in like a John Oliver show, but all of a sudden he's recording at his home, and he doesn't get that response, and there's not that layer of experience. And like, I think you really have to show people this is how empty things can feel without this. And because I don't think people purposely defer audio. I think everyone agrees it's important. We just don't think, I guess we just take it for granted, honestly. And then we don't ever, it's like, oh, audio will wind up being great, right? It'll be there.
I mean, it usually does because like audio people usually like, so, because, okay, who wants to be in that spot? Who wants to be in that job that nobody like even knows that you exist, right?
Yeah.
So people who are doing
until
it like
the very end,
are really passionate about it.
The
So,
audio, right?
yeah, and they're like bust their butt to make it amazing in the last like 2 days available, and they're just like, oh, audio's there all of a sudden.
Well, and the other thing, related to this, so our dear friend Bob Berkebile, who we will have on the show. He showed up in our
oh my god, yeah.
He showed up in our Discord chat. By the way, chat.xrtalk.net. I'm doing my job.
Nice. Well done.
So Bob is pixel placement in there, and so the thing I've always loved about Bob is even when he does like a demo video, it just feels polished. It feels like I can always tell when I can tell when it's a Bob Unity project. First of all, just looking at the project itself.
The naming convention.
Yes. Yeah. I know. I know Bob.
Yeah, the hierarchy is all clean.
Bob has been here because of that. But also, like, if you look at his YouTube channel or the stuff he shares, he always puts a soundtrack to it. So, like, he shared a video, or actually, I think Eric shared a video of some of his work in the Discord chat. And I'm like, of course, that's a Bob video because it's got like a dubstep audio track to it. And but it is that thing, like, because it would have been just as easy for him to post, like, here's a video of me walking around a thing I built and you can hear me breathing, which is what a lot of people do. And like he probably spent some time and thought about what music he wanted to put to it. He didn't he didn't compose a custom song. But he just put a layer of audio on it, and it just changes the whole mood of what you're watching. And like, of course it sounds obvious to say that out loud, but so many people don't
Right.
bother. I don't bother. I forget to do it. Like I will be more aware going forward after this conversation.
I have a question along those same lines about, so a lot of, because we, except for Magic Leap and Microsoft, we don't really yet have a head-mounted display for augmented reality.
A face computer.
A face computer, right? Exactly. A spatially aware face computer. So what we're building AR for is tablets and phones. And tablets and phones, you need to hold away from your face. And so the audio that comes out of that little thing is going to be super directional. It's at arm's length. And it's also going to not be left, right, or, good Lord, it's not going to be spatial. So, like,
Well,
how do we...
It can be. So,
Wait, hold on. Wait. You're saying that I can hold an AR app in my hand and I can get spatialized audio behind my head from that speaker?
Kind of, sort of. You kind of, sort of can, right? So, I can't remember. I don't think I won't say it. I don't think we shipped it, but we did experiment with, we made this Pancake Pals, the game, where you and your friend can flip virtual pancakes, from one pen to another. But we also made a iPhone XR viewer, sort of, that you can actually watch your friends play in real time in the same space, totally co-located.
Like a spectator view type of thing?
Spectator view,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Right.
And it was running basically the same exact audio setup as it did on the device build, and plug to Apple. When you hold the phone this way, right, it goes to stereo, and it has like the left and right tracks. And I think they're doing something a little tricky to actually, there's some crosstalk cancellation kind of trickery that actually gives you the illusion of being it more spatial. Now, if you plugged in your headphones, it would totally be spatial. Like you would hear stuff behind you and stuff like that. But even with the iPhone going in the landscape mode, I mean, maybe like my brain imagined things, but when there was a pancake flying like by my head, like it did seem to me it did fly towards the back.
You could kind of hear it that way, right?
I mean, there are definitely technologies that do that like you can probably find it online. Like you go to your laptop and you like, just with the laptop speaker, it can make things like fly around your head. Like there's some trickery that you can do with just a speaker.
I mean,
that's awesome.
The big spatial. When we first introduced the like near ear drivers, that's the word I was trying to think of earlier. So we had near ear drivers, which were like HoloLens style. It's not in ear, it's not over ear, it's near ear, and then when we would do a spatial audio demo, an audio only demo, there's a really popular demo, which is the barbershop haircut demo. It's not Magic Leap didn't make it. It's not owned. I think you probably just Google for barbershop spatial audio.
YouTube.
Yeah. And so what is it? So that whole demo is recorded from the perspective of someone sitting in a barbershop chair, and you can hear the clippers going around your ears. You can hear people talking, and you can hear scissors. And it's a really powerful demo for people because for me, I think the first time I heard it, I even got the little bit of chills on my back of my neck because, you get that clipper sound coming really close to your ear.
I'm going to cut your hair.
Yeah. And I haven't had a haircut in months. So I'd be really afraid of it. But like, that's something people can try themselves pretty easily. But like, that was there's plenty of proofs of how powerful this stuff can be. I think there was a couple questions that have popped by.
David hooked us up with the with the YouTube search.
Oh, cool. Thank you. There was a question around like the future. Here we go. Another one, Patrick. Like, you know, in your opinion, having been so immersed in this, forgive the pun. Like, what are you seeing as the future of spatial audio? Is there more work to be done?
Like, where do we go from
like,
here?
is it on the consumption side, on the like the thing consumers wear, or is it on the production side? Like, do you have? I'm sure you have lots of thoughts.
No, there's honestly so much work. So everybody jump on in. No, we're not even close yet. And I don't want to also like there's spatial audio, right? Spatial audio is kind of its own thing, but like what I was trying to say earlier, you know, there's the technology and there's the craft, right? And on the craft side, we still have a long way to go. There's on the technology side, there's the whole, I know this question came up once, and I think, Spencer, you mentioned it, kind of like matching the acoustic properties of your room. That is a hard problem. I think we'll get there. I think other companies will get there. I think everybody's working really hard to get there. And, you know, and other stuff like, you know, more deeper world understanding. I think a lot of companies are like gunning towards that, you know, understanding much better semantically, like what the objects are, what they're made of, what the color is, and all that stuff. As you can imagine, that will have a lot of impact on, you know, physics, and audio is all physics.
Right.
So you can make your own conclusions from that. And then the other really big, I think, area is procedurally generated audio. So basically, like what we're doing right now, you can, in audio, right, you can think of it as like 2D animation. So we need to kind of make the same transition that, you know, animators went from 2D to 3D, right, to 3D graphics.
When you say procedurally generated, so is that like procedurally generated room tone, or actual sound generation based on models? You know, kind of like graphics right now. It's all based on models, and it gets rendered in real time, right? There's basically like mathematical models of, you know, everything, the skeletons and mesh and renderers and this and that, and then it generates in real time based on lighting and shaders and who knows what else, right? What we're doing with audio is we're not doing that. We're pre-recording a bunch of sounds, and we kind of like collaging them together in real time, hoping that it will match, you know, that specific visual that you're seeing. But it's going to get a lot more difficult and costly and unreasonable once you like start directly interacting with virtual, you know, objects, right? More and more. Okay, I have a question. Have you seen the UE4 demo?
UE5.
Yeah, the
UE5 demo.
The cave thing.
Yeah.
The light.
Yeah. Where you can hear the audio start to compress as she's like sliding through the little like slot canyon. What are your thoughts on like is that then working on bounce off of?
So that's propagation, right? There's like, you can think of two pieces to audio, right? The thing is like graphics for the most part, well, maybe that's not true. Like you do light generation, but the biggest problem I think in graphics is light propagation, right? Like all the ray tracing and how it reflects and bounces and diffraction.
And the bounce and all that, right? Yeah.
With audio, we actually have two problems. There's the audio propagation, you know, how sound spreads through the world and how it gets affected by different materials, different, you know, physical shapes and openings, or, you know, the other like crazy part about audio is that it can actually go in places where light cannot go, right? The sound can go through walls and the light cannot. So, so the wall can vibrate and then it can generate its own sound. It just gets super crazy. And then the other part of audio that's not solved at all really is sound generation, because the way sound is generating is based on, you know, some kind of impact, right? Something gets excited, there's kinetic energy that then gets transformed into the sound, right? It's like there's like vibration, it shakes the air starts shaking, and that's what you hear. So that's the part, this generation we have not solved basically at all. There's like a little bit of research, but nobody really cares.
So
But they will start caring really, really fast.
it's
Because like my favorite, example. Here's my handy little water cup. So I can actually make like an unlimited number of sounds just interacting with this cup.
right.
By like banging it hard and soft and scraping it on different things and shaking it. So the way we would do it right now is we would record, tens or hundreds or thousands of sounds and try to play the right sound at the right time. But it's never going to match like your expectations, which we go back to the beginning where like it has to match your expectation. So if I hit my cup super hard and it doesn't play the right sound, then forget it. This cup is bullshit.
Well, the crazy part to me is like, on the graphics side, like the holy grail is ray tracing, right? Where you take a photon and you simulate its path through physical space as it bounces off of things. It emits more, it picks up color properties. Like compared to audio, that's kind of a simple problem space. Like it's a photon, and that photon but like with audio,
you can simplify it and treat it as a particle, right? As
right.
You have to do a wave, a wave equation,
right? And not only that, but like the wave impacts other physical objects, and it's not that the wave gets transformed. It's that the physical object that it's in is now emitting its own waves, like to truly again back to this idea of if quote unquote ray tracing is an accurate physical simulation of light, like the computation and the intensity of accurately physically modeling true sound is like mind blowing. The amount of dimensions and things you have to factor in, like you get into materials, you don't just get into colors and like photons getting blocked or it's pretty
crazy.
Nuts. Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, and again, like that's just the propagation, which is already nuts. But now like generating the original sound source that is then gonna propagate, right? So there are kind of two processes, and the original sound source is the one that you also need to model. Like, okay, what does this cup sound like? What does it sound with the water in it?
Fascinating.
What if it's only half full of water?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so okay. Going into that piece of it. If I have a cup and I bounce it on the table, right? Like let's say this is like one of the conditions in the parametric sound generator, right? I bounce the cup on the table. I need to know what the cup is made out of, so that I can define the sound that comes out of the cup.
Table.
I need to know what's inside the cup. Is it water or is it mud?
Yep.
And then I need to know what the table is comprised of and what the structure of the table is.
Yep.
Because if it's a block of wood, then it's going to be one sound. If it's a thin table, then it's going to be another sound, right? So there's all of these like parameters. How could you ever build a sound system that makes parametric sound? I mean, it just sounds like an impossible task.
You can. No, I think somebody will do it eventually. Right? I'm not going to say who.
There's baby versions of it right now, right?
Yeah, the thing is, like, the reason why nobody has done it before is because it didn't matter, right? If you go to a movie and you see a movie on a screen and the sound designer sort of collaged a tiger roar to match that particular dinosaur roar, and it's just that one specific instance of it, and it's pretty fine and it works, it sounds great. You're not like, oh, wait a minute, that sounds like a tiger, and a dinosaur is not going to roar 10 different ways, and you can't get close to it to hear if it's
well, also you can't go back to it and make it roar again. It just roars once.
Right.
Well, but I think the
in what we're doing, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But I like
Yeah,
the
over and over
I think
and over, and I
Yeah.
can like really listen to it.
Yeah.
the greater point is like, you know, we've known like ray trace, like in graphics programming, like ray tracing's been around for a very long time, but it was like, yeah, but like why would we simulate why would we simulate true photon behavior if we're ultimately rendering in real time on a very low res screen that like even the CPU can't. But like now things are getting to the point where that's become a realistic thing. And so like I think the point on audio is like the distribution mechanism has been pretty fixed and like limited. Like, sure, we had speakers around the room, blah, 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 and some processing stuff. But is that really what's so interesting about the XR part of this? Is because now we're head tracking. Like, we could even go so far as to talk about not only we know where your head is in space, we know how it's posed, and then therefore we can derive where your two ear holes are in that, like, in that environment. And I think I went, Todd kind of asked a similar, I didn't know if you guys had talked about HRTF while I was gone, and that's why he asked, or if he's just doing some geek flex. But like his question was like, modeling, you know, welcome to the geek flex. The modeling your
2000.
yeah, like, so like, you know, a part of the spatial audio thing, like we talked about earlier, like if you think about it as 6 DOF sound, the one part of it is obviously where the sound originates from, but there's also the physicality of your reception of that audio. And we just assume everybody here sings the same way we do, and we have similar shaped heads. Like, at what point does the fidelity of the distribution become good enough to where we need to worry about accurately knowing where my ear holes are?
Yeah, well, that's a raging
just
debate
like IPV,
in a
right?
spatial audio community.
Good. This
Well,
is what I'm here for.
Like IPV, like you need to know where your eyes are. Or
Yeah,
focus
exactly.
correctly.
Exactly. That's a good point.
Right.
Do we need to know
So-
interoral
Distance, sure.
inter-ear distance?
I don't want to go like too far into that. Like, I'll say it's still a matter of debate a little bit, and there's like some conflicting studies of like how important is personalization. I think ultimately like it is going to make a difference, especially if you have like unusual ears or like especially large head. Like if you're more of an outlier,
Like Spencer.
Generally kind of generic like HRTFs work pretty well for like a big chunk of people and work okay for like the rest of people. I still just want to go back to like we do have bigger fish to fry. I think like if your cup doesn't sound right, like it doesn't matter.
Okay,
that
so
like,
so
perceived
what
5
is the
degrees to the right.
what is the biggest fish to fry in your world right now?
Well, in my world, the biggest fish to fry is figuring out what the hell I'm gonna do next.
Getting a job, right?
If you go back to audio for XR, you know, I think it's what I said. It's like the actual sound, real-time sound modeling and physics-based or model-based like sound generation.
So
and
parametric sound generation.
Yeah, well, and really, like, I think the biggest kicker is interactivity, right? The direct interactions, because that's when you're gonna start calling bullshit. Like, even with games, you have like this indirect interaction, like, oh, I press a button and it swings a sword or swings a lightsaber, and you're like, okay, well, I didn't actually do it. My character kind of did it, and it sort of matches, like, because we could still
Right.
like
now we've got hand tracking.
Now we know, like
controller tracking,
moving the thing with our hand, that we like know exactly what it's supposed to sound like, right? And if it doesn't sound right, then you lose.
Well, but you know, back to the earlier conversation we had, physical or accuracy in physical simulation does not correlate to good experience. So like that's the other thing to like pull it back to. Like we could get into accurately modeling your head shape and your ear locations, and we could have a perfect physical simulation of audio, ignoring all the calculation and computation challenges that doesn't mean it's a good experience just because it's realistic, right?
Yeah, I think there's some things that are going to be more important than actual spatialization, binauralization. Like I might totally lose all my credibility right now, but I know
I think you've got some good credibility going.
There have been times where people like in our team would like argue together and be like, well, this one is better, no, that one is better. We would be comparing, talking about like, oh, this spatial audio works better than the other, and then like hours later we would realize like, oh, one of them wasn't actually working at all, so all we were hearing is like irregular panning. Your brain kind of like fucks with you a little bit. And
it's got to be kind of tough for audio people in this space because not a lot of us like focus really closely on what things sound like, because they just are supposed to sound right. And when like there's this whole, like, for basically my entire career, there has been a focus on how realistic does it look, and people can very quickly discern whether or not an avatar's face looks like a creepy talking meat sack or if it looks like a real person. But we don't really focus on sound as kind of opining
which is a magical opportunity to like
which is like
trick people
with it's like this kind of like scary little thing where you are actually producing something that will increase the believability of the experience, and people don't know why. They have no clue why that was so amazing, but it was amazing because of the audio, and it's like this unsung hero kind of thing. And we talked about it at the very beginning of this, which is
the tortured soul of the audio.
That's right.
But like, actually, there has to be moments where
all the work, none of the credit. We love it. That's the life, you guys. Audio is great.
I can't imagine how often you've sat in meetings where people were like banging on the table around like the most unimportant, subtle visual thing, and you're just sitting there thinking, it sounds like shit though. Like you guys are like, let me sprinkle some like audio love on this, and you won't even care about that stupid pixel that you're arguing about. Like, that has to happen all the time. And I probably have been a part of those conversations, and I'm here to apologize.
I mean, usually our stuff doesn't sound like shit, but yeah, I mean, it can definitely make things take things to the new level, right? And I hate saying it because it's like, oh, I'm just tooting my own horn. It's like, oh, it's so great.
No, but I think no. I mean, this is we are putting you on the pedestal.
It's repeatedly a thing that happens with all of our clients, is that as soon as we add in audio, even if it's a freaking stand-in, magenta audio, they're like, oh, that's so much better.
I mean, do you guys remember the fish? The fish, Nemo, the fish, not Nemo, but a fish that looked like Nemo.
Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot about that.
The swam in a circle.
Yeah. So we had a demo. It was an internal demo, and it was a Nemo looking type, and it just kind of gently.
It was a clownfish.
Yeah, it just gently swam around the room, right? It kind of just. So what?
I mean, we went through that. We had this whole thing called like content lineup that was early like set of demos. There was like the fish, and there was like Gimbal, from Dr. G.
Gerald.
Let me give some people more inside baseball, because I think they like this stuff. So when we used to, in the early days of we had Shanna on a few episodes ago, and we talked about the evolution of the Magic Leap demo. And before Shanna really came along, like, a lot of the demo content and experience fell upon myself and a couple of other people in the company and engineers and stuff. And the content we showed was like this grab bag of executables we would run that like somebody made like a kind of an interesting quick demo, and then that all of a sudden became a part of the demo. And so in the earliest of days, and I don't even know if you know this, Anastasia, but the earliest of days was we would pick and choose which apps to run for the demo. And we would kind of pick and choose based on who it was and blah, 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 how much time we had. And then eventually we were like, look, clearly we're going to be given demos for a long time. Can we structure this a little bit better? And so the content lineup that you're referring to, so I don't know if you know this or if you were there for this part, but we said, can we please put a little structure around this? So we show these bits and pieces of content, but at least like it's one executable we can run. And
so we have to like hold on a second.
Yeah.
To load this
and it's a common set of controls, and that was kind of like actually Bob Berkewile I think was a big
Bob
part of
did it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, we got to have him on. But so we had the content lineup. I had to this just totally unearthed an old memory for me, but the content lineup was a pretty core part of the demo for a lot of 2015, and
huge. Yeah.
And then we got to the point where we could plug new demos into the content lineup. And some of the things I remember were we had the characters. So if you've ever seen any talk about like monsters, Gerald was the 4-armed blue character. I mean, it's been a while. I could probably name all the characters, but like there were some popular ones. Clegg was the one with thumbs for legs and things like that. So that's kind of the backstory. Yeah, that was kind of the backstory. And actually, Clegg was the one. I don't know if we had an episode, several episodes back, where I talked about black in AR, and Clegg was the one that had these big giant eyes, and that's the one where we showed you could see dark pupils in the eyes of the character, even though it was an optical view through display. So if you've ever wondered about black in AR and why that is a thing or not a thing, we covered that in a past episode. So.
Like and subscribe.
If you liked and subscribed, you'd already know these things. Yeah. So anyway, sorry. That was just a little bit of background on what content lineup was, and then so like the fish, back to the story was, we started experimenting with different types of content, and the fish was like this relaxing, like moment of the demo where you could just watch it kind of casually swim around the room. So, but I didn't realize there was a special audio story about that demo.
Well, so at some point, our team, the Sonic Arts, we went through the content lineup and we like did all this like badass audio for all of it, like music and some voiceover and like really like neat sound design tricks on the robots, like the gimbal from Dr. G and the Probot. But the fish, the simple little fish, like we had people cry, like watching the fish. They've seen the demo before, like XLT members, just because we added music.
Same demo they've been running for
years.
Yeah. Years.
You know what? I got to tell you though, the audio that we added to Probot, and I was involved in that one, made Roni like
freak out. I remember that.
Freak out. He actually literally like moved back from the character.
Again, let me give
so threatening.
Let me give some backstory. So a lot of people.
That was a different one. That wasn't ours.
That wasn't yours?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think so.
No, Probot was in the content. I don't know if you did the audio for it, but it was in the content line. It was an old demo. So a lot of people that follow the Magic Leap story know that there's a relationship with Weta, and there was a team at Weta that did Dr. G, Dr. Gordborts, and boosters, and and a lot of that was through the art direction of Greg Broadmoor, who we may have on the show. He's a friend of ours. We love him. And Greg Broadmoor did like the concept art for District 9, King Kong, like amazing work. So Probot was this little metal robotic waspy looking character who had wings that kind of looked like little glowing coils, and it had little teeny T-Rex style pinchers in the front, like little arms.
Yep.
And you can easily I have at least posted pictures of Probot, like a physical model of Probot, So Probot's out there somewhere. If you joined the
I
Discord
think
chat,
it's in the game. I think it's
oh right,
in
yeah, it's in .g, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you joined our chat at chat.xrtalk.net, I will share my picture of Probot. So I'm always plugging, always working. So Probot was this little flying glowy thing, and we would have people do the demo, and that was one of the early interactive demos where we'd have you hold up a finger, and we would detect that you've put up a finger using a real rough, early, old school hand detection. And if you held up your fingertip, the Probot would fly up to your finger. And the cool thing about that is that gave the viewer the chance to control where Probot flew around. And the reason why this is a relevant story is because people felt in control of the experience. And then what we would have people do is bring Probot really close to their face and then listen. And you could hear I felt like you could hear the little pincher sounds of the little razor bladey sounds. And that's what freaked people out.
The way I set that up in Unity was like each little piece had its own, like kind of like the lightsaber, except way Stone Age from what you guys did. Is that each little piece had its own audio source, and so as it was kind of rotating around, you could hear this part doing this, and this part doing that, and this part doing, and it felt, for the time, like it just totally worked.
It freaked people because you could hear it coming closer
behind you.
Yeah,
you would just only hear it in this ear. And if it went over here, you would only hear it in this. So it wasn't spatialized.
Well, we would
It had that.
I've talked about this before. We did the spatialized audio demo with Probot where we would have one in front of you, and then we would randomly show one behind you, and we would tell people to look for it, and they would immediately locate it based off the audio. The other thing about Probot was that was the first time I saw people talk about physical sensation because Probot had this like hot glowing wing thing going on, and people would say, "Oh, I can feel my fingertip getting warmer," and we're like, "We're not doing that." Right. And I gave, I don't know about hundreds, maybe hundreds, definitely more than 100 demos, and it was a pretty common comment, like I can feel that thing on my finger. And I think that was as much the audio as anything is the point. Like the visuals were powerful, but the audio sank it in. Like if the visuals set the nail, the audio hammers it. Sets it. It's like, okay, everything's checking out, so my brain's telling me I should get my hand away from this thing.
Well, there's another example of something similar back to the lightsabers, right? We actually had two of them. There was a blue and a red, and then you had to fight Brett to get access to the red one, and he did
Brett.
his best, Disney park worker, impersonation.
He was the cast member.
He was the cast member. We changed the lights in the room and everything. It's awesome. But then you would get both of them, and we were like, okay, play around. But then people could hit them on each other. But the cool part about it is, yes, it had the visuals and it had the sound. It had the little haptic too in just one of them. The second controller's haptic didn't work, I think. But if you think about it, it's pretty complex, geometric, spatial equation. If you don't have anything, how would you know where to stop, right? But people would stop when they were hitting the two fingers.
I'm messing something up.
They would stop themselves.
No, exactly. They would feel that they're hitting, and they would not just go through randomly, right?
Right.
Was there any haptics in the controllers at that point?
There was in one controller. There was a little haptic.
Yeah.
But altogether, they totally they could slide one against the other with total precision, Right. But there's nothing there. How are you sliding these two things on each other?
You're doing that with audio, right?
Yeah. The other demo, you mentioned gimbal. So again, gimbal came from that Weta Dr. G universe, and I hate to keep saying it. We've talked about this before. I don't know why you people have not been watching all of our episodes, but Spencer did some of the first shot through Magic Leap videos that were publicly released, and Gimbal is that little capsule shaped robot that was under the desk that we showed being occluded by the desk. So Spencer actually literally shot that video. And we use Gimbal so you can easily search for that video. But we would show Gimbal in the demo quite a bit. And again, I go back to the audio detail that was there, because Gimbal is just sitting there kind of hovering, but he's got this kind of like twitchy head thing going on. And like there's these little servo motor sounds that like, you're just like, oh yeah, that little metal thing is flying right there. And it all checks out. Like
each one of those sounds was a separate audio piece.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So in setting it up in Unity, you had to make sure that everything like kind of played at the right time for the right thing, and this animation triggers this, and that is actually another piece that like our folks in the chat, that's a huge ability to be able to not only create Foley and music and sound, but be able to apply it to a 3D object in a game engine. So whether it's Unity or it's UE or whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, the implementation is really like at least half of the final product of what we do. Like for a lot of stuff in Create, like all of these like little blocks, the 3D blocks that all interact and hit each other and hit other blocks, like those are really simple sounds, but they're like thousands of lines of code behind that just to make it sound right. When this block hits this other block, and how hard, and what sound do we play? That was like a ton of work. So it was mostly implementation on that side.
So I related to that, Eric had asked a question way earlier in the show about, he's new to Unity and he's figuring everything out. And so actually, like even compared to just, I don't know, a decade ago, this stuff to get started, pretty simple. I mean, as far as Unity goes, I can at least speak to in that you have a notion of an audio listener, which is almost always the camera because it represents the view. And then you have audio sources. And so those audio sources are attached to 3D objects in the scene. And so the nice thing about that is all the code underneath to like determine volume, panning, Doppler, all these crazy ideas, at least at a rudimentary level, a lot of it is taken care of. Like you can just say the audio listener is the camera, which in a lot of HMDs, the camera represents the head. And then when you place audio in the scene, if you want it to be positional or spatial, you just attach it to a 3D object which has position in the scene. And then if you want...
Well, and you probably want to add like a 3D audio plugin. I think Unity is also pretty simple. I think
they're
they have
just panning.
Built in now. No, they're not just panning.
No?
No, in Unity you go to like project settings, audio settings, and then you say like, I think you said enable specialization, or you choose spatial audio plugin from drop down.
Yeah, I mean by default they just they just pan.
By default it just pans. Yes.
Yeah. And so so a lot of this stuff's really accessible. And then if you wanted like ambient music or environmental ambient, I don't know, usually the trick is you just attach the audio source to the camera and then it basically moves with it. But I got the feeling that's a bad way to go.
Sorry.
Based on Anastasia's reaction.
To start with, you can do that.
We're talking about basics.
Yes.
We are basics here.
I'm sorry.
We're not advanced. No, but no, I mean, I think it's good for people to hear that like just because you got audio to just work in Unity doesn't mean you're done. You can take it as far as you wanted to or need to. Would you say that, do you know that if you did want to dive deeper into truly spatialized, like to the level that you're used to working at, does Unity support that out of the box if you dig deep enough, or do you need to actually start using third party type stuff?
Well, in terms of like, again, spatial audio plugins, there are a lot of options out there, right? So I think Unity comes with a couple, something like Google Resonance is like open source, cross-platform. It works on a bunch of platforms. So if you're, I don't know which platform you're working for, building for, but Resonance probably will work for that. So that's a good option for the plugin. And then like all this other stuff that I'm talking about, or maybe haven't talked about yet, but, level of detail in audio and like dynamic mixing and head pose based, loudness and all kinds of crazy stuff like that.
I remember W-Wise.
There's
Wise,
right?
yeah. Just
So-
Wise. It's spelled
Wise is
WW Wise, but it's
yeah.
just said Wise.
Yeah.
So Wise is a tool. It's a middleware. It's kind of like, like your shader forge, or your. They had something for particles too. I forgot what it's called, but kind of like third-party thing for particles. It's it's a tool, right? That, What I keep trying to say that the techniques are not yet established or well documented. Brett and myself and 6 other people for Magic Leap like have it in here, and we've talked about it at conferences, and maybe a few other people
and subscribe.
Yeah.
a few other people in the world have like tried this stuff, but for the most part it's like nobody has done it yet. There's not like a book or handbook on how to do that. So you can use whatever tool you want, but like it doesn't replace, I guess, the techniques. It's almost like if you think about cinematography and all the different shots, hey, there's a tracking shot and the Dutch angle and the vertigo shot, and like all of that got developed over time as we were, as people made, movies and over like 100 years. And we just started doing this thing, and if you just buy the most like awesome camera in the world, it's not going to teach you how to be a good cinematographer or how to like frame a shot or,
What?
It's true.
What?
It's true because I say that. So just like focusing on the tools, like, oh, I got this awesome 3D audio plugin and I got Wise, like it's not going to make you a good spatial audio designer or any, audio designer really. It's just, unfortunately, like I can't really point to any handbook. So
Right.
I guess the best
You're
thing
gonna
I
have
can
to
say
write
is
it.
just like write the book and, start trying shit. And when it works, tell the world about it.
I think we need to get a book deal for Anastasia. Yeah. So we are running way long. I hope everybody's okay, but I think this is super interesting. And the one thing something you tweeted about that spoke so dearly to my heart. So as you know, like I started Torch, and one of our premises was, if you're going to build content that interacts with the real world, you should build the content within the real world. So our approach to that was you had to be on an iPad or an iPhone and walk around the environment and build the content to the room you're in or the world you're in. And you tweeted within the past couple days that you felt like that on the audio side that it should be done spatial, like you should be composing spatially, or you should be at least working spatially. So like, and you said you would die on this hill. So
I will.
So just to frame it up. So for years we have worked off of a desktop computer, a laptop, PC, whatever. We've worked on a screen. We've built a model of an environment and we've planted things in it. And then we put it on a device that we can wear or walk around and we test. But then we realize it's wrong or bad. And then we go to back to the desktop to build. So I'm curious, like when you were talking about that, are you talking about actually, is that a notion of placing audio? Is it a composition thing? Like what is that hill that you've posed yourself to die on?
Well, I mean, I think, ultimately, I don't know, like down the road, are we going to do everything in spatial? Maybe. But I think at the very least, when you author in spatial audio, you're modifying how audio how sound changes in space,
Right.
Based on distance to you as the listener, or based on the angle of whether you're looking at it or not, or based on is it being occluded by something else. It's really hard, or like even how it's falling off over distance. It's really hard to look at the screen and draw a curve of some sound that like, oh, that's exactly how I want it to fall off. I want it like about 1.7 meters, and I want it to go down like by a half. Like nobody can like visualize or imagine that in their head.
It's much easier to just to walk closer to it and then walk.
Yeah, so like
that works.
Yeah, it's like at a practical level. Like poor Brett. I bet Brett wished he could have a mic in this conversation. We're just gonna keep talking. We're just gonna keep talking about him like he's not here. But like back to the lightsaber demo, like that is a lot of iteration of like, oh, let me run a build, let me swipe it around my ear and see if that sounds right. Did you ultimately build in or on device tuning or tweaking, or is that something you hope to get to? Like, or like in the case of the lightsaber demo, like since we talked so much about it, was it really like, oh, let me tune some values on the desktop, make a build, test it, go back to the desktop, or did you have the capability to tune in real time on the device?
So
like while you were in it,
it's a kind of like it's a kind of like complex question, right? So lightsaber demo was probably like 4 years ago, so we couldn't do it like.
So that was before zero iteration.
Yeah, it was before zero iteration. And so I think Brett will correct me if I'm wrong. I know he will, but I think he might have used. I mean, we did use Wise for that, and Wise does have a cool feature of like real-time profiling.
Oh, cool.
So you can connect to a build that's running live or whatever your target hardware and actually mix in real time.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I think you might have used that for lightsaber.
So
otherwise, it would have been like super painful.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm getting. So like, we'll wait for Brett to chime in, but just so everyone kind of understands, like the idea there would be, okay, I'm running the experience on my HMD, I'm testing it out, and it's getting its values from a desktop or a laptop, and I can, without rebuilding it or rerunning it, while I'm messing with it, I can tune and tweak value. I still got to go to a computer, but I've got it running on my head, and I can in real time kind of like iterate.
That's what Wise allows you to do.
Cool.
Neat,
okay.
Right.
Okay.
And at some point we introduced like a tablet, so you can have Wise running on something like a Surface tablet. You can actually then walk around and do it on there, which was better. What I'm talking about is like kind of a little bit beyond that, but even more better in the future, year 2000.
Yeah.
I want to point out that Brett is seriously punting for a spot on our show. He's like,
I think
that's a story for another time, guys.
No, I think he's been a good sport. Brett, we'd love to have you on the show. But like, I mean, this is just something near and dear to my heart. Is like workflow. Like we have what we're in the middle of, and we have been for years, and we probably will be for a couple years more, is this transition from, we know how to build stuff on screen sitting at a desk, but we're starting to use that workflow to build content that's experienced in a totally different context. And like at some point, the content creation in the authoring part of that has to move to that context, right?
It does.
It has to.
100%. 100%. That's the hill. Yeah. Well, even if like, look, if the initial creation, is still on the computer, but like, even if you dump it all in there and then you get into your, in your 6 DOF environment, and then you start placing it and adjusting it, picking the scale, tweaking your physics, changing your shaders and doing like all that stuff that you can only fully experience, while you're there, without all this iteration.
And my response to your dying on the hill tweet was something along the lines of, until the controls and the accuracy of HMD and 6DoF input becomes more precise, I'm going to build it on those things.
It's efficiency. It's like efficiency of input. Yep.
Yeah, like I can't try to build. There are only very, very few people on the planet like Estella Tai who can build things that are beautiful first off in VR or in some HMD with controllers. Like that's a skill that not all of us have. There's a ton of us with skills that have the ability to build beautiful things.
Yeah, and I wasn't ragging on content creators. I was just saying like.
The point
have those tools.
But the interesting part of the conversation is like we're old. Honestly, maybe not you, but Spencer and I are definitely old, and our muscle memory is around typing on a keyboard. Like you know what I mean? Like I mean, so the efficient path for us is we will have to train ourselves if we're like. It is our most efficient path to type on a keyboard and work at a desktop.
What about voice input? I mean, we tried that.
Yeah.
Voice input for values.
That's what I'm.
Really freaking good.
I think
5.729, and it just puts it in there.
That's what I wonder if there's generations that will become like. For us, I've experienced bad voice dictation and voice input. And we've been burned by it. So I mean, maybe it is eventually we get to a point where maybe the time for in context authoring is like when we can naturally speak to a computer and it will respond to that. Before I forget, I just want to leave it popped up here. Brett, if you're talking about Dave Shumway, we will definitely have the two of you on for a really fun chat. So I've never met Brett, but I can already tell I like Brett. And if
Brett's great,
and if Dave can come in, if Dave can take a child break for a minute to have a 2-hour episode with us, we will definitely have another audio. We should have you back as well and have a whole audio forum.
Could we actually technically do 4?
I don't know. We should test it.
You're going to need to do some work.
Yeah, I've thought about maybe we should switch over to Zoom. We use Skype for this
Might
stuff.
screw up your whole layout.
Yeah, well, I'm going to give up on that pretty soon anyway. But man, actually, we've gone longer than any other guest.
This is the very longest XR talk that has ever been produced.
I'm okay.
Oh God! Hold on. This is my cue.
Yeah. Leave it to the audio person to bring their own audio. All I have is this one. Oh! I'm fast.
Nothing.
Yeah. Well, you can make that noise with your body, but please don't.
Yeah. I might be able to like rustle one up. But,
What about?
right now.
So, oh yeah.
Oh, I stopped. Okay.
I think we've determined that I saw a lot of minds light up in the chat, and hopefully we can spread the word far and wide that audio is so important, and we should talk about it sooner than later, and how much it can add, and you should definitely write a book, you should go ahead and get started on that now.
Okay.
Yep. That's your next thing.
And then Magic Leap is going to sue me. It's going to be great.
No, I don't think so. You have conceptual knowledge, but not proprietary knowledge. And no, I think you're right. Like you are one of very few. Like look at it this way: if audio is a marginalized discipline, I hate to say that, but in interact,
we really are.
But it's true.
It kind of is.
It's true. So like if I think it's fair for you to say I am one of a few people in the world that have deep, practical, hands-on thoughts about how audio works when we're trying to mimic the real world, but also blend entertainment. Like this is all super fascinating stuff. So I think the time was well worth it. You know, I don't, we actually had stuff we were going to talk about, but I think we covered a lot of really good stuff.
Oh, can I answer Stella's question? I think she
Yeah,
asked it
absolutely.
twice.
Yes.
What are my favorite headphones? So
Yes.
That was early. Yeah.
I don't go based on sound quality as much as comfort, because I have tender little ears that get hurt by headphones. So these are the most comfortable that I was able to find.
Oh wait, let me switch you to the.
God.
It's
oh
weird.
my God, I can't do it.
There you go.
But it's the Bear Dynamics TT 770, and they come in a couple different flavors, but they kind of like wearing like Bear Dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Bear Dynamics.
Bear Dynamics.
And it's like wearing nice little like cloud cushions on your ears. They're very comfortable.
Okay,
and
so
they're pro. So
yeah,
this brings up for me. Just I know that we're trying to like roll out.
Right now, whatever.
But
I've already taken my bathroom break, so I'm good.
Dave Shumway had a pair of Sony earphones that were like $3,000.
Yeah, they weren't
Is that
Sony.
Correct?
They weren't Sony. They were. Oh my gosh, there's like a little bit more of a boutique sort of headphone company. I know
like
Brett is going to chime in and tell us.
Damn it, Brett! I hope you didn't leave yet.
Brett.
Well, they were insane. They were like these giant cans that went on the side of his head.
Still
And
has
he's like,
them.
wow, those
Still
are
has
really
them.
cool. And he's like, yeah, they were like $3,000. It's crazy how much these were, you know. So
No, sorry, it's like I forgot what it was called right now.
Mine are these are the Master and Dynamics, which another funny Magic Leap backstory.
Oh, I remember that story.
No. So first of all, let me share.
the terrible headphones.
Well, hold on, because a lot of people don't know the real backstory here. So these are Master and Dynamics. I'll take them off real quick.
Sorry, Master and Dynamics.
No.
Those particular ones.
So these are not the ones that everybody got that were more circular. What's cool about them is the ear cups are magnetic and they pop off, and they are not very comfortable. So I bought them based off of a review and a recommendation. And so when we've talked about this, when did we talk about Dakota Center? Brian Schwab, or was that?
It was with Brian.
So in the Dakota Center, I didn't have a desk. Every time I got a desk, I wound up giving it to someone else, and I was sitting in the hallway. And I literally found a little spot that was not really a desk, and I just put a stool there. So I bought these headphones because I was like trying to we were in a very loud open office environment, 200 people in one open room. And so I bought these thinking they would they're not noise canceling, but they isolate. So I'm wearing these headphones like day 2, I get them and I'm like, oh, these fancy headphones I bought, you know. And so the former CFO of Magic Leap came from Beats. So, I mean, this is all public information. So Scott Henry was at Beats, and then after Apple acquired Beats, he was at Apple for a little while, and then he wound up at Magic Leap. So I'm sitting in the hallway, and he stops, and he's like, oh, those are Master and Dynamics. And I'm like, yeah, I read a bunch of reviews. They got they seem cool, whatever. And it turns out like a week later, I'm like, these hurt. These are not that comfortable. He's like, yeah, I know those guys. That's cool. Those are cool. And I'm like, yeah, I thought I was like real, like I was like, yeah, you know, like when you buy something like a piece of gear and somebody validates it, you're like, oh, the guy from Beats thinks I got cool headphones. That's cool. So then fast forward, not that long after, apparently, I don't know if I inspired this, but basically,
you know you did.
But basically, so Magic Leap had constantly been struggling with all these people working in this big open room. Like I said, I'm not exaggerating. 100 to 150 people working in a big open room.
The open office.
All of them on
Yeah.
Google Hangouts chats, right? So we were all video chatting. So people started asking for
and screaming at each other.
Yeah, across the room. So people are asking for noise canceling headphones because, hey, I'm in video calls all day. I'm in this open office. It's loud. It's cacophonous. And so people were wanting budget, like they were wanting to buy their own headphones. So However it went down, I don't know, so I'm not going to speculate. But basically, all of a sudden,
Your fault, Paul.
It totally is.
Magic Leap struck some sort of deal with Master and Dynamic that we got this like a couple of pallets of not exactly these headphones, even less comfortable versions of these headphones.
It was so uncomfortable.
And
They were like forceps.
and like yes,
Slapped
that's how
down.
they were worse. And like just so everybody knows, like I mean it's been a few years. I think these were like a couple hundred, like a few $100, like $300. And I think the ones that they got were probably retail like $150. So there was this announcement like, hey, everyone's getting a free pair of Master and Dynamic headphones. And like, these are like $150 headphones, but you know that they were just like excess inventory. And like that, like Scott had called a buddy and gotten some sort of deal. Again, I don't know that that's the story. That's just my speculation. So,
But they were awful.
so yeah,
So take this bag.
yeah. So mine are like, how you know the difference is mine have these oval shape, like they're oval. And the ones that we gave away to the employees were like more circles. And everybody's like, oh my God, we got these cool like leather high-end headphones.
They looked cool as hell. Yeah, they were really cool
Like
looking.
2 weeks later, everyone was
But they were
pissed.
like painful.
They were not-
And
Yeah.
the
They
audio
were
was terrible.
they were not
Yeah,
noise
no.
canceling. They were
They
not
had no microphone.
they were not comfortable. They don't have a microphone built in. Like this one's like oh my God. And it was like the ultimate, like I hate.
classic magic.
Yes. So you want to talk about a real insider baseball story? The story of the free Master and Dynamic headphones. That's the one for the books. And I feel somewhat personally responsible just because I was sitting in the hallway and literally I
Way to go.
only wear these for this show. Like I've got it. Like earlier in the show I was showing. Or before we started the show, I actually daily I use these Bose wireless. I've got it charging right now, but they're super comfy, and I can wear them all day. The crown of my head and my ears hurt, like so. I put hundreds of people through head pain.
You need some of these, Paul.
No, I literally just put them on and was like, nope. I didn't even try. I was like, nope. Please
Yeah.
take the bag.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, Michael Keith's like that. So I don't know if Michael knows I was responsible for his head pain,
Oh, he does now.
but now you know.
It's Paul's fault, Michael.
Actually, it's Scott Henry's fault, and I'm okay with saying that. But yeah, it's that's some real insider stuff. Back anybody that was there from 2015 or 2016 will know about the headphones. Jurg said he replaced them with $25 active noise canceling headphone at noise canceling earbuds in a week. It's true. It was the total irony was like everybody wanted company supplied headphones because they were shoving us in this big room with all this noise, and then they like assert this gesture of like these designer headphones that actually aren't comfortable nor work very well. Oh no! Oh crap! I'm
Now
gonna
everybody
yeah
knows.
yeah. Oh, sorry everyone. Sorry. You know the funny part about it was like I had my chance to claim a pair and I'm like I'm good. I've got these. Yeah, I've got these uncomfortable ones. I don't need your free uncomfortable ones, but thanks.
Dick.
Sorry. Some real inside stuff there. Man, this was awesome. Thanks so much. I think we opened
Fun.
some
Thank you
eyes.
guys for having me.
We can share this video widely and say if you've ever wondered about audio in XR or spatial audio, here is your reference. I think that's what we did today. Is that too grandiose?
I mean, I don't
There
know
was-
about the entire reference. You know,
Well, you're
something to get you real.
You're gonna
nervous
write-
about.
you're gonna write the book.
There was some really cool insight into how this whole thing works and how hard it is.
This is the forward
You know,
to
like,
the book.
Thank you. Yeah.
That
That's
you're,
right.
that you're gonna write.
And I just wanted to say, like, I know there was a ton of. Oh, I froze. Cool.
That's
Can
okay.
you guys still hear
Yeah,
me?
you're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know there was like a lot of questions that we didn't get to. I am in the XR chat, so if you want to
Yeah.
ask a question, just like tag me in there because I might miss it otherwise, and then I'll answer it.
Yeah, XR Talk. So chat.xrtalk.net. She's already in there.
Mhm.
We're all in
I
there. Yeah, and like yeah, we'll see you in there. Thanks everyone. Thanks to the Peanut Gallery. I got to call out Cammie. She showed up late, but that's okay. She showed up, and that's what's important. Thanks everyone. Engage via our YouTube channel. I need to check out what you're publishing on there. I see you in our chat often. So thanks so much. We will have another episode next week. I'm no longer going to joke about this being our last episode anymore.
Nope.
We're just gonna keep doing it.
Going.
Yeah. We need to. We will sign off here, but we've still got to do our poster frame. So I will. Let's say goodbye to the
what is
chat.
that?
We got to decide if we want to do the Magic Leap thing or the sunglasses. I have both, so we can figure it out.
You can do both at the same
I
time.
haven't either. So,
Yeah.
so,
You're the butt of the. You're the
wear
butt of the
this.
joke either way, which I love.
Well, as always, I'm the butt of the joke, of course.
Oh
You know, I could wear
yeah,
this.
you can look like
Okay.
you can look like the noob that we don't. We're like, ugh.
There we go.
Yeah. All right. Well.
Who's this
Yeah,
guy?
you guys put on your gear. and
Oh,
I'll
should we
be like,
should we keep doing this
"What?"
live? Do you want to keep doing it
I
live?
mean,
What, man?
we already
Well,
do
Okay.
it.
Well, let me go get my headset. One sec.
Okay, get your headset. What? I mean, I don't even know what's going on.
Where? Do you see anything?
Oh, you
See,
got it
I
right
can see
there.
through
Look
these
at you.
things.
Holy shit! You rocked it right away.
That's right.
No, this is like an old galaxy. Oh, there's Paul. Paul's gonna go backwards head. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And then we can do
Okay,
like
so-
that.
Wait, so
Oh
the
my God.
is the
I
idea
can't see
that,
anything though,
Jesus,
so.
this is the hardest.
oh, this is weird. I'm wearing headphones with it.
All right.
The idea is that we're kind of like put off by Spencer, right?
We're like,
Well,
Really
isn't
smart.
that the idea
We're-
for
wait,
all of the shots?
So we're kind of like looking this way.
Wait, this way.
I think we got it.
Nice.
nailed it.
That's good.
Yeah, I think
I love being
Anastasia,
the
I
butt
think
of
you
all
get
of your
credit
jokes. That's
for
good.
the only guest we've had so far that actually put thought ahead of time into their poster frame pose.
Yeah, I'm a responsible individual.
Yes,
You
you're
know.
way more responsible than any of our other guests so far, and I mean that sincerely. So, okay, I'm all tangled up, so we might as well sign off.
Thank
Alright.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was
Bye,
super
bye.
fun. Yeah. All right, everyone. We will see you next week, or we'll see you in the chat between then. Thank you so much.
Peace out.
Let me end.